Alright, I'm back with another medieval recreation project. So, for this one, I wanted to do a study about stained glass windows. Obviously, I couldn't, do an actual stained glass art project, so that's why I'm painting, because stained glass materials are surprisingly expensive. I don't really know what I expected. I mean, I knew that it would be, but it was a lot more than I thought it would be. Anyway, back to the main point. So what I'm doing here is I printed off a copy of the Transfiguration of Christ that is in the Chartres Cathedral. I don't know if I'm saying it. I think I'm saying it right. Anyway, and so in this first part, I'm just painting the blues and whatnot. So I am going to give a little background about what is actually happening in this scene. So I'm going to do a little reading from the Reams Bible, that is the Transfiguration of Christ. So it's Matthew chapter 17, 1 through 8. And after 6 days, Jesus taketh unto him Peter and James and John his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart. And he was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his garments became white as snow. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elias talking with him. And Peter answering said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. And as he was yet speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And lo, a voice out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And the disciples hearing fell upon their face, and were very much afraid. And Jesus came and touched them, and said to them, Arise and fear not. And they, lifting up their eyes, saw no one but only Jesus. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, Tell the vision to no man till the Son of Man be risen from the dead. So, in this picture, there are 6 people. The person in the middle is Jesus, and then the 2 next to him are Moses and Elias, and then the 3 down on the bottom are Peter, James, and John. And once we get to the ending, and you'll get to see more of the colors going on in here, Jesus is actually wearing quite a bit of green, as well as Moses and Elias, which is very interesting because after doing research, I found out that green in the medieval time period celebrated the season of Epiphany, and that ends with the Transfiguration of Christ. So I thought that that was kind of an interesting incorporation, because that, thing that I noticed, because I didn't know that beforehand until I was doing my research. Alright, so now I'm going to give a little bit of a background of how they actually made stained glass and why I couldn't do it. So, back in the day, what they would do to make the stained glass they would mix sand and wood ash, and then they would melt it until it was liquid. And then once it was cooled, it was glass. And so when they wanted to color the glass, they would put powdered metals in the mixture while the glass was still molten. And then they would flatten it out after they had blown it. and then they would cut it out into pieces, kind of like almost like a puzzle. So how I'm painting it right now, like little section by section, that would be how they would cut it out, and then they would arrange it on a piece of board, and then they would paint the details on there with black paint if they needed to. Otherwise, they would put them together with putty between the glass for waterproofing, and then they would put it in an iron frame and then mount it in the wall. So that is how they did it, and I don't have access to any of those materials, so I just did painted glass, which is just fine. So yeah. Alright, so now I'm gonna go in a little bit about the history of the Chartres Cathedral, because that was one of the reasons why I picked this particular picture. So it's unique in a few ways. So the first reason is that it still has about 176 original stained glass windows in there, so it's kept about 80% of the original windows. It's gone through very few renovations, so it's like one of the most accurate to the historical time period examples of architecture that we have. And then it also is kind of cool because it was designed and made within 30 years, which if you do a little bit of research and like actually look at what this cathedral is like, that's pretty impressive because it is very elaborate. There's a lot of sculptures on the inside. Obviously there's a lot of stained glass windows, so there's a lot of artwork going on. I'm sorry that this is gonna be jumping around a lot. I didn't really script it out, so I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants right now, just spouting off what I've learned. So anyway, so while I was doing the process of painting this scene, I practiced beholding, kind of like I did in Inquiry 1. Because while I was painting, I was also using some reference pictures, and I was looking at the colors used and like the positions of people and the like the swirls, like all the little details. Like if you look in the bottom, it kind of, without it being painted, it looks like it could be clouds, but in reality, I think it's grass, because it was various shades of like green and yellow. And so it was just interesting seeing the like the symbolism come to life as I was doing this. And then I was also noticing like the positions with the colors of the halos, for example. So you see here I've painted 3 of them, they're red, while the other 3 are yellow, and they both form triangles. So that was kind of an interesting connection to the Holy Trinity and just the repetition of 3 throughout this picture. So like if you look in the middle, there's 3 rings, there's 2 sets of 3 people, all that kind of stuff. Oh, and also there's 3 stripes on Jesus's halo, which also form a triangle, so I thought that that was kind of an interesting little detail. I just thought that it was really cool, like, as I was doing it, noticing how like, I knew that medieval artwork was detailed, but I never realized how detailed it was. Because you kind of, at least for me, I always thought that it was just kind of like basic painting, just because they didn't have a lot of access to various colors and blah blah blah. But when you actually get in there and look at it, there is a lot going on, and it's not just like the details. There's a lot of symbolism and all that jazz. So I thought that that was kind of an interesting thing to think about as I was painting. Alright, so like I just said, this is going to be jumping around a lot because I just realized that I forgot to say why they even had stained glass windows. Like, what was the main purpose of them? And so one of the big issues in the church back in those days is that there were very few literate people. And so the way that Christians would learn about their religion was by going to church, and the priests would read Bible verses, and when they wanted to like worship on their own, or if they just wanted to follow along, they would look up at the stained glass windows because those would depict scenes of what was going on in the Bible. And so I thought that that was a really cool tool, especially with studying to become a teacher, how we use visuals while we're trying to teach, that they also were using visuals while they were teaching. Of course, it's a bit more extreme than making a PowerPoint, but either way, it's a tool that they used for learning, and so I think that that is pretty cool. Alright, we're jumping around again. So one of the things that I was noticing while I was recording this, actually, that I didn't really think about while I was painting, but now that I'm watching it, voicing over, there are a lot of circles going on here. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 6 or 7 circles in just this one spot alone. And so I just looked it up, and the circle, according to medievallifeandtimes.info, the circle symbolizes eternity as it has no beginning or end. Because of this, many early Christians believed that there was something divine in circles. And so that makes sense to me, because it is depicting a very mystical, divine scene, because, like I read earlier, you know, Jesus's face started glowing. There was a cloud speaking to them. 2 people appeared out of nowhere. So it's just kind of interesting. Oh, here was the pause for my painting buddy break. Anyway, so it was just interesting to see that, and it makes me wonder about other stained glass windows, if that was like a common theme. I know that a lot of the layouts in general would like kind of circle like a flower almost. I don't know if I'm describing it properly, that you know what I'm talking about, but it would be a circle in total, but it would be made up of different sections. So I'm just wondering if some of those sections have more circles in them like this one does. That's just me thinking out loud. I'm sorry. Alright, so I'm sure that you're probably getting sick of listening to me kind of ramble, maybe rant a little bit, and watching me paint, not making a whole lot of progress. I spent probably like a good solid 6 hours. All of this footage right now is sped up ×2, and before I did that, it was an hour long, and I didn't even record everything for each color. So I'm just gonna explain a little bit about this end part. So when I was doing the colors, like, it was looking fine, like it was really cool, and I like took the picture out and I like held it up to the window. The colors looked super cool. And then I tried going over the outlines in black, and it didn't exactly turn out the best. I'm still working on it, but I did the Jesus part and the lines coming out from him, and my brush is not as small as I thought it would be. So I might have to send you a picture of what it actually turns out looking like. Otherwise, I'll probably just hide it in shame. Because it's not my best product. It's not as cool as my last project, which I'm kind of disappointed about, but it was still fun to do. And I liked learning about the color symbolism and like the history of stained glass. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it with that. Yeah, okay. Bye.